After that day, Leo had been walking on eggshells. He was relieved to find that Sterling apparently hadn't reported the incident to Julian, and the tension between them had eased considerably. Sterling, however, became even more withdrawn. His expression grew colder, and he would often stand alone for hours in the courtyard, gazing out at the frozen grounds, a deeper shade of melancholy settling over him. Asher, ever meticulous and averse to making enemies, found a quiet moment to speak with him. He explained indirectly that no offense had been taken that day, adding a few words to smooth things over for Leo, suggesting his remarks had been the careless product of too much whiskey. Sterling offered a faint, sorrowful smile. He told Asher that despite his youth, he handled things flawlessly. He was worried Sterling would hold a grudge against him and Leo. Sterling assured him he wouldn't dare. In fact, he said, Leo's words weren't wrong. Asher had accomplished so much for Julian, earning his trust, yet it was Asher whom the First Lady had summoned for a stern. That was a sign she intended to make use of him. Sterling then asked Asher to consider his own position. He had been by Julian's side for years, and Julian treated him well, but the First Lady had never once acknowledged his existence. Thinking about it now, he realized she saw him as nothing more than a plaything, like a cat or a dog meant to keep her son entertained. Of course, he would never be worthy of her notice. It was people like Asher, capable and useful, who warranted her attention, who were formally summoned for reprimands and Sterling concluded that Asher's future was bright, while he himself had wasted all these years through his own foolishness. Asher was left speechless. Sterling was not a fool. But unlike the rest of them, who had started from nothing, Sterling couldn't bring himself to bow his head. To bend once would mean he could never stand straight again. Everyone would use him as a stepping stone. So he resisted, propping himself up with what little pride he had left. Compounding this was his affection for Julian, a tangled emotion not so easily unraveled. In the end, there was nothing to be done but sigh. The Christmas holiday was a major event. Julian was busy with state functions until the government officially went on recess, at which point things finally quieted down. The family's private wing of the governor's mansion became more relaxed, though it was still adorned with festive lights and decorations from the recent galas, creating a lively atmosphere. At the main state banquet, however, the First Lady, Eleanor, had once again cited illness and did not appear. It was the governor's mother who presided over the event, joined by other high-ranking women of the administration, receiving the wives of senior officials. Despite this, Julian showed no sign of distress, maintaining a serene composure. He continued his daily visits to his mother's chambers to pay his respects and gave generous holiday bonuses to the entire staff of his wing. With the start of the winter break, tutoring ceased and official business paused. Everyone had just received their holiday bonuses, and the mansion was alive with cheerful energy. One afternoon, Julian summoned Asher. Asher entered the solarium, where a fire roared in the hearth, filling the room with a pleasant warmth. Julian was dressed casually in a well-worn, pearl gray cashmere sweater, a dark, embroidered belt cinching his waist. He wore simple charcoal-colored trousers, the cuffs loosely rolled, revealing fine wool socks with a gold trim. His hair was undone, held back from his face by a simple silk band, giving him a rare look of relaxed elegance. He was reclining against a pile of cushions on a built-in sofa, a book in his hand, looking at a chessboard. Sterling sat across from him, discussing a move, observing how a particular piece had been brilliantly placed in the corner. They were analyzing a classic match. Seeing Asher enter and bow, Julian set the book aside. He told Asher he had called him to draft a note to be sent to his grandmother's estate on Long Island. It was customary to visit her during the holidays, and he planned to go the next day with Sterling. Asher bowed and confirmed he would handle it, asking if he should also arrange the holiday gifts and transportation, and whether he needed to notify the security detail. Julian explained that Sterling would handle the gifts, so Asher needn't worry about that. He confirmed a car should be arranged, but only 2 security officers would be necessary. He didn't want to bother the whole team during the holiday. Julian instructed Asher to inform the head of security that he would be staying at the estate all day and not going out, so a large escort was not needed. The note, however, was Asher's responsibility. He was to deliver it personally and give a message to his cousin, Marcus. He was to tell Marcus to arrange some good wine and fine food for a walk through the sculpture garden. Not the usual fare, but something more refined. And he wanted no other company. He only wished to borrow the estate's magnificent garden for the afternoon. Asher knew this was a plum assignment. Delivering a note to the family matriarch's estate at Christmas would certainly come with a generous tip. He surmised that Julian was looking for a way to lift Sterling's spirits, planning an outing with fine wine and scenery to distract him from his gloom. He agreed at once. Julian added a few more instructions, then turned to Sterling. He told him that his mother had sent for Mrs. and his old nanny that morning, and it seemed more gifts had arrived. He thought some of them might be suitable for his grandmother's family and instructed Sterling to go through them and prepare the presents properly. Sterling stood and acknowledged the order. Just as he was about to leave, Mrs. Anne's voice could be heard from the hallway, asking a maid if Julian was available. A smile touched Julian's lips. Though he had been trained since childhood to conceal his emotions, he held a deep respect and affection for his former nanny. He raised his voice slightly, inviting Mrs. Anne to come in. The door opened and the kindly, gentle-faced Mrs. Anne entered, followed by several maids in festive red and green attire. Mrs. Anne had a soft demeanor and was always smiling, never one to cause trouble. In Julian's wing, she lived a comfortable, semi-retired life, her duties mostly consisting of inquiring after his well-being. She never presumed upon her former status to meddle in his affairs, and for this, everyone from Julian down to the junior staff treated her with immense respect. Mrs. Anne curtsied and inquired after Julian's health, asking if he had eaten and if there was any important business for the day. Julian smiled and had Sterling help her up, then told Asher to bring a stool for her to sit on. He explained that with the government on recess, there was no pressing business. He had been spending the morning reading and studying chess games. He then asked if his mother had any important messages for him. Mrs. Anne beamed with joy. She said it was wonderful news. She had just returned from seeing the First Lady, who had told her that with the new year, it was time to consider Julian's future. Taking advantage of his break from his studies, she had personally gone to the household management office and selected 2 discreet, well-mannered, and gentle young women to serve as his companions. She was to choose an auspicious day for them to begin their duties, in preparation for his eventual marriage and the continuation of the family line. This, it turned out, was a long-standing tradition among the powerful families. Before an heir's formal marriage, older, experienced women were often brought in to instruct him in the ways of the world. After the heir married, these companions were usually given a small, respectable position within the household. Of course, in reality, many young men in such circles had long since been initiated by their personal maids. But Julian had always been exceptionally disciplined and proper. With his father and mother watching him so closely, no maid with any sense would dare try to seduce him. Thus, it was only now, with talk of marriage in the air, that the household office was arranging for official companions. Asher listened and glanced behind Mrs. Anne. Sure enough, surrounded by a few junior maids were 2 young women dressed in elegant, saffron-colored silk blouses and crimson skirts. Though they kept their heads slightly lowered in modesty, it was clear they were exceptionally beautiful. One, who introduced herself as Coralie, had skin like polished ivory and eyes like dark ink. The other, named Willow, had long, arched brows and a gentle gaze. Both had clearly been rigorously trained. Their movements as they stepped forward to curtsy were graceful and poised. A faint blush on their cheeks from shyness only added to their charm. They looked to be about 17 or 18, at that perfect, captivating age between a flower in full bloom and a bud about to open. Asher, knowing Sterling's secret pain, stole a glance at him. As he expected, Sterling's face was ashen. He was staring intently at Julian. Julian, however, didn't notice. He simply told Mrs. and that he was grateful for her trouble and that she should see to their accommodations. Mrs. and smiled, asking Julian if the women were to his liking. If so, she would choose a good day for them to begin their service. The two young women lowered their heads even further, their ears burning red. Julian, however, merely gave them a brief, indifferent glance. His expression remained as proper and serious as ever, without a hint of impropriety. He told Mrs. and that his mother's choices were naturally excellent and that she should arrange things as she saw fit. He added, however, that he had already sent a note to his grandmother's estate for the next day and would not be available. Mrs. and laughed, assuring him there was no rush and that she would select a suitable date. For now, she would take them to be settled in the Clearwater cottage in the back gardens. Julian nodded silently, Mrs. and then added that the First Lady had sent along several holiday gifts, saying they were for him to use as he saw fit, and that they would be perfect for his visit to his grandmother's estate. She had already had them taken to the pantry for inventory. Julian replied that he was just about to send Sterling to coordinate with her, and thanked her for her trouble. Mrs. and nodded, then curtsied and led the two young women away. Only then did Julian turn to Sterling and instruct him to go see what had been sent, select a few appropriate items, and draw up a gift list for him to review. Sterling, who had not yet recovered from his shock, seemed lost in thought. Julian, noticing he wasn't responding, repeated the instruction. Sterling finally snapped back to reality and said he would go at once. Julian, accustomed to Sterling's often distracted nature, paid it no mind. He waved his hand, dismissing them both, and called for dinner to be served. Asher followed Sterling out of the room. Sterling walked like a man in a daze, heading numbly toward the study. Asher sighed internally. In his current state, Sterling's feelings were dangerously close to being exposed. It was only because Julian was so upright and proper that no one would ever suspect such a thing. Only Asher, who knew the truth, could see it so clearly. If Sterling continued like this, it was only a matter of time before his secret was revealed. It was perfectly normal for a family of this stature to arrange companions for a young heir to initiate him into adulthood. This was especially true for the heir to a political dynasty, whose duty was to marry, produce children, and continue the line. That was an obligation of his station. It wouldn't matter if Sterling were still his childhood tutor instead of a personal attendant. Julian would never entertain such feelings for him. The next morning, Julian, accompanied by Sterling and Asher, left for the estate on Long Island. After greeting his elders and exchanging pleasantries, Julian's cousin, Marcus, led him to the sculpture garden as requested. Marcus smiled, saying that Julian's mother had always loved this part of the estate, and had even asked about it the last time she visited. He explained he had arranged for the finest smoked brisket and aged cheddar, along with a side of lamb that he had personally watched the kitchen staff roast that morning. The wine was also ready, a special vintage from the previous year. It was clear Julian's goal for the day was to lift Sterling's spirits, and being in a place his mother loved seemed to relax him. He smiled and thanked his cousin for the trouble. Marcus gave him a knowing wink. After seeing the staff set up a heated pavilion with food and drinks, and giving them final instructions, he pulled Asher aside. He told him with a grin that the two of them had things to attend to, mentioning that Asher had told him about a recipe for a spicy chili a while back. He'd had the kitchen try it, and it was excellent. He'd set up a pot in one of the side rooms and invited Asher and the two security guards to come and taste it. With that, he whisked Asher and the guards away, leaving Julian and Sterling alone to enjoy the garden. These old-money families were all as sharp as tacks. Asher understood Marcus's intention and went along with a smile. In a cozy sitting room off the garden, there was indeed a large pot of chili simmering, served with perfectly grilled lamb chops. It was a recipe Asher had casually mentioned to Marcus, a rich, hearty chili made with a beef tallow base, slow-cooked with peppers and spices. On a cold winter day, paired with a robust red wine, it was the perfect thing to ward off the chill. Before long, the two guards were sweating but still eating with gusto. Asher, maintaining the habits of his previous life, ate mostly vegetables and rarely touched meat. He picked at some bean sprouts, winter mushrooms, and other sides, drinking a little wine to warm himself. After a while, he checked the time and decided to head back to the pavilion to see if Julian needed anything. The garden was filled with the subtle scent of pine and cold stone from the sculptures, all meticulously maintained. Asher was wearing only a simple charcoal gray wool coat and felt the crisp air bite at his skin, a sensation that was both sharp and invigorating. When he reached the pavilion, he found the table and chairs undisturbed, but Julian and Sterling were gone. He asked a nearby maid where they had gone. The maid replied that Julian had taken the other gentleman for a walk to admire the art, saying they would stay within the garden and that the staff shouldn't follow. The pavilion was built on a small rise, offering a commanding view of nearly the entire garden. Asher stepped out and scanned the area. Sure enough, amidst a grove of snow-dusted evergreens, he saw Julian and Sterling walking side by side. Julian was wrapped in a black cashmere overcoat, and Sterling, in a striking cream-colored wool coat with a high collar, looked remarkably elegant. It was no wonder the maid hadn't realized he was a personal attendant. Asher thought for a moment, then began walking quickly toward them. It was already past noon. They should be heading back soon. He had just rounded a curved path when he saw Sterling hurtling toward him. Startled, Asher quickly stepped aside. Sterling's lips were pressed into a thin, white line, his eyes red as he ran past. He was heading for a side gate of the garden. Behind him, Julian called out his name, telling him to listen, but Sterling didn't stop. The gate was manned, but the guards recognized him as a guest and didn't dare block his path. Sterling burst through and disappeared. Julian, striding quickly, reached the gate, stamped his foot in frustration, and then ran out after him. Asher stood frozen for a second, realizing there was no time to fetch the security detail. He took off running after them. Asher followed Julian out the gate and saw Sterling untying a horse tethered near the entrance, one that belonged to another visitor. He swung himself into the saddle and galloped away. Julian, close behind, untied another horse and gave chase. The gatekeepers, seeing it was Julian, didn't dare intervene, watching in shock as the two horses vanished down the road. Asher reached the gate, stamped his foot, and yelled at the staff to inform Marcus that Julian had left the estate and to send security after them. Then he too mounted a horse and spurred it into a desperate pursuit. The estate, having been acquired by the family relatively recently, was in a less developed area, farther from the city but with quick access to the countryside. Asher raced after Sterling and Julian, watching them leave the main road and head toward the wilderness. He cursed silently. The governor's son, galloping off into the countryside with such abandon. If word of this got back to the capital, it would cause a political firestorm. He had no choice but to follow. Having only learned to ride after joining Julian's service, his skills were no match for the two men, who had received aristocratic training in horsemanship since childhood. He fell further and further behind. As they left the paved roads, the path grew narrower. It had snowed for days and there were few people out. The sky began to darken. Asher, frantic with worry, pushed his horse on, ignoring the burning pain in his thighs from the friction. He knew that if they returned to the mansion and Julian was unharmed, it would be fine. But if something happened to Julian, both he and Sterling would face dire consequences. He had a promising future, and he didn't want it all to be destroyed now. A surge of anger rose in him, directed at both the emotional Sterling and the reckless Julian. Weren't they always so composed and proper? What could have possibly happened to make Julian chase after him so frantically? He galloped on, following the tracks in the snow, his mind racing. Finally, he saw Julian and Sterling's horses in the distance. Relieved, he was about to urge his horse faster when he saw the horse in front of him let out a pained cry and collapse, throwing its rider to the ground. His heart leaped into his throat. He tried to rein in his own horse, but it was too late. He felt his horse's front legs give way, a tripwire. He was too close to stop. He was thrown from the saddle, instinctively curling his body to protect his vital organs as he hit the ground. The deep snow cushioned the fall, and he wasn't badly hurt. But as he looked up, he saw 7 or 8 men emerge from the surrounding woods, quickly surrounding them, armed with hunting knives and rifles. They had been ambushed. How could there be bandits this close to the capital? The thought flashed through his mind as he saw that Julian and Sterling were already being held down. Sterling seemed to have been knocked out by the fall. Several men closed in on Asher. He didn't resist as they pinned him down, searched him, took his wallet and anything of value, and tied his hands behind his back with a coarse rope. The men were clearly thrilled. One of them shouted, "Wade, look! After all this time, we finally caught some fat cats." A tall man with a thick beard walked over, picked up Sterling's expensive coat, and examined it with satisfaction. He declared it would fetch a few $100s, and the watch and other jewelry were a nice bonus. They had some cash on them, too. At least the group would eat well tomorrow. As for the horses, they could be sold. And the people? Might as well kill them. At this, Julian spoke. His voice was steady and clear, despite being bound and stripped of his coat and valuables, looking disheveled but utterly composed. He stated that his family was wealthy. If they were after money, he could write a note, have his attendant deliver it, and they would be paid 1,000 times over for his and his brother's safe return. He asked them to spare their lives. The bearded man, Wade, sneered. He said the rich folks around here had too many connections. It was cleaner to just kill them and avoid any trouble. Just then, another, more timid man stepped forward. He told Wade that the boss would be furious if he found out they'd come down the mountain to rob people without his permission. Besides, he argued they were too close to the capital. A murder would attract the state police and the feds. It was better to keep a low profile, just take the money and go. Wade's face darkened. He grumbled that they were out of food on the mountain. Were they supposed to wait for the boss to find some? There were too many mouths to feed. If they let these guys go, they'd seen their faces. That would just create more problems. Julian remained calm. He promised that if they were released, they would not press charges. He gave his word. Wade just grunted, looking Julian and Sterling over. He said coldly that one look at their clothes told him they were from a powerful family. It was better to take them back to the mountain, kill them, and dump the bodies in a ravine. Clean and simple. Julian tried to say more, but Wade ordered his men to gag him. He then barked out orders for 2 of his men to take the horses and ride toward a larger town down the road. Sell the stolen goods, buy supplies, and get back to the mountain as quickly as possible. Asher's heart sank. He had been hoping the security from the estate would catch up to them in time. But he knew the town they mentioned was on a major waterway, a busy hub. If they sold the goods there and disappeared, they would be impossible to trace. By then, he and the others would likely be dead. His mind raced, searching for a solution, as the bandits threw him over a horse, blindfolded him, and rode off into the woods. The bandits were brutally efficient and surprisingly meticulous. They had muffled the horses' hooves with cloth and dragged branches behind them to erase their tracks as they ventured deeper into the mountains. The sky grew dark. After about 2 hours of riding blindfolded, they were pulled from the horses and led on foot for another half hour. Finally, he heard voices calling out, asking about the catch. Amidst the rough laughter and chatter, a voice suddenly announced that the boss was coming. The noise died instantly. A deep voice spoke, heavy with authority. "I told you not to go down the mountain without permission. And you brought people back with you? What were you thinking?" In the ensuing silence, Wade's coarse, defiant voice rang out. "My dear young master, if this snow keeps up, we're all going to starve to death on this mountain. You went looking for supplies, gone for 5 days and came back with nothing. We're already fugitives. Becoming outlaws is inevitable. The authorities are cracking down everywhere. How are we supposed to survive? These rich kids are clearly corrupt. We're just robbing the rich to feed the poor." His tone was flippant, showing little respect for the boss. The authoritative voice rose in anger. "That doesn't give us the right to rob and kill. We are only here because of circumstance. If we do this, how can we ever face my father?" Wade let out a cold laugh. "Boss, we risked our lives to follow you, not to starve while you lecture us. We trusted you to lead us to a better life." The boss's voice grew louder. "If you still recognize me as your leader, you will listen to me. If not, you can leave this mountain right now. I won't stop you." Wade fell silent. Other voices murmured, trying to mediate, saying Wade was just thinking of the group's welfare. Then, Wade muttered something under his breath and walked away. A hesitant voice asked the boss what they should do with the captives. They'd seen their faces. Letting them go was risky. The boss paused for a moment, then said to lock them in the tool shed for now. After a few days, when they had left the area, they could release them somewhere remote. He ordered that they be given food, water, and blankets, and that no harm was to come to them. After a few murmurs of assent, Asher was dragged, still blindfolded, into a shed. Once inside, his blindfold and gag were finally removed. As soon as he could speak, Julian addressed one of the grunts, asking him to please tell their leader he had something to say to him, that it was urgent he be granted a meeting. The man ignored them, simply threw them into the shed, locked the door from the outside, and left. Asher sat up and saw that Sterling, who had been unconscious, was finally stirring. His face was a frightening shade of white. Julian, concerned, asked if he was awake, if he had been injured in the fall. He reassured him that they had been captured by bandits who seemed to be after money, and that the family would surely find them soon. Sterling stared blankly for a moment, as if piecing together their situation. Then he lowered his head and began to cry, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs, his teeth clenched to stifle any sound. Asher, watching him, understood the cause of his breakdown. In the garden, he must have confessed his feelings to Julian. The sudden flight meant Julian had rejected him, or said something that filled him with shame and anger. For someone with his pride, the thought of suicide was likely on his mind. It was no wonder Julian had chased after him, fearing the worst. And now, they had run into bandits, jeopardizing Julian's life and future. Sterling must have been drowning in a sea of guilt, regret, shame, and fury. But now, what could be said? Asher sighed. He knew that at their age, both Sterling and Julian were driven by intense, volatile emotions. Julian, though usually so composed, had always treated Sterling with a special kind of care. Over the years, he must have unknowingly developed a sense of responsibility for him. And being a completely straight, inexperienced young man, he had probably never imagined Sterling could harbor such feelings. Faced with a sudden confession, he would have been shocked and incapable of accepting it. Seeing Sterling run off in distress, he would have feared for his life and impulsively followed. And who in their right mind would expect to run into desperate fugitives so close to the capital? It was unthinkable. Now, their only hope was that the boss truly had no intention of killing them. The shed was cold and quiet. To break the tension, Asher decided to ask a question. He wondered aloud how there could be bandits so close to the capital. Julian frowned. He agreed it was unheard of, but noted that their movements were disciplined, like scattered soldiers turned outlaw. Asher thought for a moment. He asked if any high-ranking military officers had recently been disgraced. Julian seemed to grasp the connection. After a moment of thought, he spoke in a low voice. He said that some time ago, during a border skirmish, General Thompson of the North Ridge Garrison was accused by government officials of failing to request reinforcements, allowing the enemy to penetrate deep into their territory and causing heavy casualties. He was arrested, brought to the capital, and charged by a tribunal. Several other charges were added, including embezzlement of military funds and illegal sale of equipment. The verdict was execution and seizure of his family's assets, with his family sentenced to exile and hard labor. It was said that his adopted son, Kane, a captain in the same garrison, heard of his father's arrest and deserted his post with his personal troops. The capital had been searched for him, and now there was a nationwide warrant for his arrest. Julian added that he had heard whispers that there was more to the case, but the evidence against Thompson was overwhelming. His friends and colleagues had tried to intervene, but failed to overturn the verdict. It seemed he had made an enemy of a powerful political faction. Julian fell silent for a moment, then added that Kane was said to be a talented young officer. A shame, really. Under different circumstances, he would have been a valuable asset to recruit. But now, with his men a mix of loyalists and ruffians, he had already sealed his fate. Asher silently scoffed. Even now, with his life hanging by a thread, Julian was thinking like a politician, recruiting and lamenting wasted talent instead of plotting an escape. He was about to say something when they heard loud shouting from outside. "I did it for the good of our brothers. We can't be good soldiers anymore, we're outlaws. If we hadn't taken over this camp from the last group of thugs, we wouldn't even have a place to sleep. You think we can ever go back?" And he talks about military justice. Does he think we're still in the army? The lock on the shed door rattled. Another voice tried to placate him. "Wade, the boss has always been good to us. We were all sentenced to death, and he was the one who got us pardoned, who fought a way out for us. This is just like the old days. The boss will figure something out." Wade, clearly drunk, roared back. "Figure something out? Bullshit. We waited all afternoon, took a huge risk to catch these two fat cats, and now we can't even use the money we got. We spent years fighting on the front lines, killing people like chickens. And now I have to listen to him? I'm full of rage and have nowhere to vent it. Don't stop me. I'm gonna let off some steam on these rich boys. The shed door swung open. The tall, bearded man from earlier, Wade, stood in the doorway, holding a heavy leather whip. He stumbled into the room, his face flushed, reeking of alcohol. Julian and the others, having heard everything, stood up. Wade sneered. I can't stand you rich kids. Just because you were born lucky, you look down on everyone. Now that you're in this mess, you're no different from us. What's there to be arrogant about? As he spoke, the whip whistled through the air, aimed at Julian. In that instant, a shadow flashed past. Sterling had thrown himself in front of Julian, taking the full force of the blow. His fine wool coat had already been stripped from him, leaving him in a simple white linen shirt. The clothes Julian provided for him were always of the highest quality, and the fabric of his undershirt was light and thin. The whip, likely barbed, tore through it instantly, leaving a livid, swelling welt on the ivory skin beneath. Wade froze for a second. Sterling didn't speak, just glared at him, his eyes blazing with a startling intensity. His features, already striking, were made even more dramatic by his fury. His hair, no longer held back by its usual clasp, fell around his face, lending him an almost ethereal beauty. Wade, who hadn't paid much attention to Sterling's appearance during the robbery, was now taken aback. This one's a real looker, he muttered. You sure it's not a girl? Sterling had always hated being told he looked feminine. After joining the household staff, he had come to loathe it even more. Wade's comment only fueled his rage, which in turn made him look even more stunning. Wade laughed, a harsh, grating sound. He lunged forward and grabbed Sterling, pulling him away from Julian. He hooked his fingers into the tear in Sterling's shirt and ripped it wider, exposing a large patch of smooth, white skin on his flat chest. You bastard! How dare you? Julian roared, but he was bound too tightly to intervene. Sterling's chest heaved with fury. A deep blush spread from his face down his neck. His eyes, still swollen from his earlier tears, were framed by long lashes, and his lips were a vivid red. The two bandits who had followed Wade in both swallowed hard at the sight. The younger one mumbled in disappointment, "It's a guy. How's his skin so smooth?" Wade glanced at Julian's expression and chuckled. You don't get it, do you? Rich boys like him, their families are strict, so they keep pretty young attendants in their studies to let off steam. I bet this little one is kept for that purpose. Look at how the big one protects the small one. How touching. Even Julian, for all his composure, was now livid, his face pale with rage. That's ridiculous slander. We're like brothers. He bit out. Wade let his eyes roam over Sterling with a malicious grin. Looks like a plaything to me, he said coldly. One of the bandits asked what a plaything was. Wade grabbed a handful of Sterling's hair, forcing his head back and exposing the graceful, tense curve of his neck. His Adam's apple was barely visible. His beautiful face was flushed crimson. Wade laughed again. You're too young to know. Some men are used like women. You ever seen the boys in the brothels down south? The younger bandit blushed and stammered. How? How do you use them like women? Wade's eyes darted down Sterling's body. Through the back, he said crudely. The young bandit's eyes went wide. That's disgusting, he blurted out. Wade roared with laughter. The rich boys love it. I heard some of them are even better than women. This one here, so pale and tender, prettier than any girl. I bet the skin inside is just as soft. He looked at the young bandit with a wicked glint in his eye. You're young, probably haven't seen much. How about I give you a little show today?" Before the words were even out of his mouth, Julian was shouting in pure fury. But Wade ignored him completely. He grabbed Sterling and was about to rip off his pants. Sterling, terrified, began to struggle wildly. His hands were tied behind him, but his feet were free. Wade, drunk and unsteady, was having trouble holding him down. He yelled for help. The other two bandits moved in with leering smiles to restrain Sterling, who fought with all his might. Asher, who had been huddled in a corner trying to make himself invisible, was horrified. Sterling was a eunuch, a consecrated servant. Unlike the others, his castration had been total. If his pants came off, the secret would be out. And once these bandits realized they had captured a eunuch, they would know their hostages were from the highest echelons of power. The only way to ensure their silence would be to kill them all. Their already precarious situation would become infinitely more dangerous. A cold sweat broke out on Asher's back. He watched Sterling struggle, the men barely able to hold him down. One of them slapped him hard across the face, leaving an angry red mark on his pale skin. Suddenly, Asher screamed, "You godless, filthy, degenerate bastards. You pieces of shit the world forgot to bury. You'll die without a woman, without a child, your family line ending with you. That thing between your legs is only good for stirring shit." He had never uttered a profane word in his life, but now, in this desperate moment, he unleashed every vile curse he had ever heard. The bandits, startled by his sudden outburst, froze. Hearing the sheer filth of his words, their faces contorted with rage. They forgot about Sterling. Wade, who had been about to assault Sterling, was now incandescent with fury. "Shut that little bastard's mouth. Slap him until it's pulp," he roared. The two bandits threw Sterling to the ground. He hit a pile of firewood and was knocked unconscious. They rolled up their sleeves and advanced on Asher. They slapped him repeatedly until his ears were ringing and his face was on fire. He could taste blood in his mouth. But Wade wasn't satisfied. He ordered them to string Asher up by his wrists from a rafter. He grabbed the whip and lashed him dozens of times. Finally, exhausted from the alcohol and the effort, he stopped. Asher was hanging limp, his eyes closed, blood dripping from the welts on his body onto the floor below. Wade, his anger somewhat appeased, cursed a few more times. The commotion had soured his mood for any further games. Besides, men with his particular tastes were rare. It had been more about humiliation than anything else. Just then, someone passed by the shed, came in, and urged Wade to stop, reminding him that the boss had ordered them not to kill anyone. He then dragged Wade off to go drinking. Wade, who was likely still intimidated by Kane, didn't feel like bothering with Sterling anymore. He locked the door and left. The sky grew darker. From the moment he was hung from the rafter, Asher had closed his eyes, regulated his breathing, and relaxed his muscles, trying to enter the detached state he achieved during yoga. It was incredibly difficult. The pain was excruciating. The whip cuts and the rope biting into his wrists were agony. For a time, he did lose consciousness. He vaguely heard Julian call his name a few times, but he was in too much pain to respond. After what felt like an eternity, he slowly regained some awareness. He opened his eyes. The shed was pitch black, save for a sliver of moonlight filtering through a crack. He could see a dark, congealed pool of blood on the floor beneath him, his own. In the corner, Julian and Sterling were leaning against each other, motionless, likely asleep. He tried to move his numb wrists and found he had almost no feeling in his fingers. If he stayed like this any longer, his hands would be permanently damaged. He regulated his breathing again, looked up at the rope and the rafter, and took a deep breath. Using his bound wrists as a pivot, he began to swing his body upwards. The movement sent searing pain through his wrists and reopened the wounds on his body. He trembled violently, knowing he had limited strength and had to succeed on the first try. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he managed to flip his body between his own arms, changing his position from being hung with his arms behind him to being in front. The effort left him dizzy, but he pushed on. Using his wrists as a fulcrum, he used every last bit of strength to swing his body up again. Fortunately, his years of yoga had kept his body flexible. He finally managed to hook his feet onto the rafter. Using that leverage, he pulled himself up and onto the beam. Below, Julian was awake, watching him, clearly startled but smart enough not to make a sound. Asher lay on the rafter, his body shaking uncontrollably. It hurt so much. He clenched his jaw and began to gnaw at the rough rope binding his wrists. He chewed until he tasted blood in his mouth again, and finally the rope gave way. He quickly slid down from the beam and ran to Julian, beginning to work on his knots. The rope was tight, the weather was cold, and his fingers were numb and clumsy from being tied for so long. It took him an agonizingly long time. Julian could feel Asher's body trembling against his as he worked. Finally, the ropes came loose. "We have to escape," Julian whispered. "Sterling has a fever." Asher's heart sank. He reached out and touched Sterling's forehead. It was burning hot. In the faint moonlight, his face was deathly pale. Asher whispered that he could create a diversion, allowing Julian to escape and find help. Kane didn't seem like a killer. Julian refused flatly. "No, I won't leave him here. If they discover he's been altered, they'll kill him to silence the secret." Asher was silent, but his estimation of Julian rose. If Julian had abandoned Sterling to save himself, it would have been typical aristocratic behavior, but not the act of someone worthy of loyalty. At a moment of life and death, to abandon a friend would render all past kindnesses meaningless. Just then, Sterling regained consciousness. He saw Asher and gasped, but Julian quickly covered his mouth. "Don't make a sound," he whispered. "Hold on. We're getting out of here." Asher went to the door and pushed. It was locked from the outside. The shed was crudely built, with a small window barred by a few wooden planks. He grabbed a piece of firewood and pried the planks loose. After listening for a moment and hearing nothing, he slipped out into the cold night. He then helped Julian and Sterling through. The mountain camp was quiet. Believing their prisoners to be pampered city boys, the bandits hadn't posted a heavy guard. The three of them moved stealthily through the darkness, making their way toward the edge of the camp. They had just passed the outer perimeter and were stumbling through the deep snow when a dog began to bark furiously. Lights flickered on throughout the camp. In the quiet mountain night, the barking was sharp and clear, carrying for miles. Men started shouting. Asher and the others broke into a run. But they were weak from hunger, and Sterling was sick. After only a few steps, he was gasping for air. Julian supported him. Asher, his body aching from his wounds, knew they would be caught if they stuck to the main path. "Don't follow the path," Julian decided instantly. "Find a trail." Asher led the way, pushing through the snow-laden bushes, heading for the densest part of the forest. After a short distance, Sterling collapsed. "Your Highness, you two go on," he whispered, his voice choked with tears. "This is all my fault. I deserve to die. Don't worry about me." In the moonlight, his voice was filled with such despair it seemed he had lost all will to live. "Don't talk nonsense," Julian snapped. He bent down, lifted Sterling onto his back, and continued to run. Asher's heart sank. He knew if the bandits used dogs to track them, they wouldn't stand a chance. After a few more steps, he heard the sound of running water. Elated, he pointed. There's a river ahead. It's probably not completely frozen. If we cross it, the dogs will lose our scent. Julian seemed to hesitate for a moment, then followed his lead, running toward the sound. When they reached the riverbank, Asher's hopes plummeted. It was a small, shallow mountain stream. Much of it was already frozen over. Even if they crossed, their tracks in the snow on the other side would be easy to follow. Julian, with Sterling on his back, had already waded into the freezing water. The current was shallow but bitingly cold. He was struggling, carrying the extra weight. Halfway across, he realized Asher was still standing on the bank, staring blankly. He turned, breathing heavily. "What is it?" Sterling had his eyes closed, his face pale, clearly delirious with fever. Julian was a wreck, his pants soaked, without a coat to protect him from the cold, his body shaking uncontrollably. But even so, he hadn't let go of Sterling. For some reason, Asher was deeply moved. True, even if Julian had abandoned Sterling, their chances of escape were slim. But to see the heir to a political dynasty, a young man raised with an imperial mindset, show such devotion to a childhood friend, it was impossible not to be touched. And Julian hadn't suggested leaving him behind either, despite his injuries slowing them down. Asher gritted his teeth and made a decision that was a complete gamble. "Your Highness," he called out, his voice low but clear. "You take Sterling and follow the river for a while. Find a place to hide. I won't cross. I'll run along this bank in the opposite direction. They have dogs. They'll follow my scent and be led away. You and Sterling follow the river. There won't be any tracks or scent in the water. If you move fast, they might not think to look for you there." Julian froze. In the distance, they could hear the baying of dogs and the shouts of men getting closer. He knew there was no time to argue. He made a snap decision. "If you're captured, beg for mercy. Do whatever you have to do to stay alive. I swear I will level this mountain to rescue you." Asher managed a small smile. He turned and ran along the riverbank, heading back toward the forest. Julian didn't dare hesitate. He turned and, without looking back, followed the river's current before climbing onto the opposite bank and disappearing into the trees. Asher didn't get far. He had been brutally whipped, and his body was failing him. When he was recaptured, he was relieved to see that Julian and Sterling were nowhere in sight. He was thrown at the feet of the man they called the boss. Cain looked at Asher, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "What happened to him? Where are the other two?" One of the bandits answered angrily, "They escaped. We only caught this one. The masters must have abandoned their servant." Cain said, "That's no reason to beat him like this." One of his men hesitated, then said quietly, "It wasn't us. We heard Wade gave him a few lashes this evening." Cain sneered. "So he defied my orders and took out his anger on a prisoner. You men were my most trusted soldiers, but in hard times you scatter. If this one's masters truly escaped, this camp is no longer safe. We leave tonight." One of his men asked, "But boss, Wade is still passed out drunk." Cain's voice was cold. "Don't bother with him. We walk different paths. He was always a thug at heart. We can't work together. This is a good time to part ways. Throw a bucket of cold water on him, wake him up, and tell him to take his men and find his own fortune. He's not welcome here anymore." Asher heard snippets of this. He had been running all night, was covered in injuries, and though he had been holding on, he was growing weaker by the second. He heard someone ask what to do with him. Cain replied, "Leave him here. His master will surely bring the authorities back soon. They'll rescue him then. Asher forced himself to look up. Take me with you, he said to Cain. I can be useful. Cain looked at him, surprised. Asher's mind was racing. Julian had escaped, but his own future was uncertain. Even if he was rescued when the authorities came to raid the camp, he would undoubtedly be punished. The First Lady's promises were conditional. Who knew if she wouldn't blame him for the incident and change her mind? And above them all was the governor himself. His favorite son had been endangered. As a personal attendant, Asher could easily face summary execution. It was better to take this chance to leave the political world behind. Cain at least wasn't a senseless killer. He had abandoned a promising future to try to save his adopted father. He was a man of honor and loyalty. It was a risk worth taking. I know you are Cain, General Thompson's son, he said, his voice hoarse. I have a way to help you. Take me with you. I don't want to go back. Cain, intrigued, knelt down to look at him. This was the first time Asher had seen him clearly. The man had a thick beard, likely from days of not shaving, and a rugged, dark complexion. Underneath heavy brows, his eyes were sharp and intelligent. He had a powerful, lean build. Asher gritted his teeth, knowing he had to convince Cain quickly. The tie clip on my collar, he forced out. It's the key to a safe deposit box at a private bank in the city. There's $50,000 in it. I also have identification papers and credentials for a transport company. And I own a house in Charleston. A safe place to hide, no one knows about it. The tie clip was inconspicuous. Though the bandits had robbed him, they had left it behind. The papers were something he had carefully prepared after taking on the First Lady's assignment. With the help of a contact in the administration who, while helpful, had likely put his own tracking measures on them. But right now, it was his only chance of survival. Cain's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He made a swift decision. Take him. Everyone were moving out now. Asher felt a wave of relief wash over him. Then, his vision went black, and he finally succumbed to his injuries and exhaustion. When he woke up, he was on a boat. His body still ached, but his wounds had been properly bandaged. He felt groggy and tried to sit up. He saw that he was wearing a clean, soft cotton shirt. Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he panicked. Just as he tried to get up, the curtain to his small cabin parted, and a very tall man entered. In the dim light, he could see a powerful, well-built physique. Seeing him awake, the man asked if he was feeling better. Asher nodded, but his voice came out as a hoarse whisper. His throat was dry and felt like it was on fire. He coughed weakly. The man came over, and with one arm, effortlessly lifted him into a sitting position. His arm was like iron. He picked up a cup of water from the bedside table and handed it to him. Asher could now see clearly that it was Cain. He had shaved his beard, revealing a surprisingly young face. He was dressed as a merchant, clearly in disguise. His calm demeanor suggested that the pursuit was not immediate. Asher took the water and drank several large gulps before whispering his thanks. Cain said that it was they who should be thanking him. He had saved them. With his money, papers, and company credentials, they had managed to evade the roadblocks and searches. Asher felt a little awkward. Cain continued, "You're one of the consecrated servants from the governor's household, aren't you? Who was the man we captured?" Asher didn't answer. Cain coughed lightly. "It's all right. The man who changed your clothes and treated your wounds, I've told him to keep his mouth shut. For a junior attendant, you have quite a lot of resources. The man you serve must be a son of a governor or even a senator." He added that he had sent someone to make inquiries and heard that the very next day, federal agents had swarmed the area. If they had delayed their escape by even a few hours, they would likely be in a military prison by now. Asher thought to himself that it would be far worse than a military prison. Knowing the governor and first lady's protectiveness over their son, a painful death would have been a certainty, especially for wanted deserters. Cain asked, "So now you want to leave that life behind?" Asher nodded. "I've wanted to for a long time. This was my chance. I hope you'll look after me, sir." Cain said, "Call me Cole. I'm a few years older than you." "And what should I call you, little brother?" Asher replied, "My name is Asher." Cain nodded. "Asher. So what are your plans for the future? You mentioned a house in Charleston where we could stay. What do you have in mind?" Asher looked at Cain. "How many of your men did you bring with you?" Cain smiled bitterly. "It was an impulsive decision. I wanted to break my father out of military prison. I brought a squad of loyal men back to the capital, but word leaked out. The government had already secretly executed him. I only managed to rescue his youngest daughter. She's only 10. It's not right for her to be living with a group of men, so I left her with a farming family for the time being. My plan was to get far away from the capital, change my name, find a way to make a living, and after a few years, when things settled down, bring her to live with me. Then my men accidentally captured you. When we were treating your wounds and discovered what you are, I knew we were in serious trouble. I sent a man to get my sister that very night, and she's with us now. And it's a good thing I did. I heard the feds searched every farmhouse in that area. Of the men who followed me, some got scared and ran off to go home to their parents. The 17 who are still with me are men I've been through hell with, men with no other family or ties. If it weren't for your company credentials, we would have been too large a group to escape notice. I'm short on cash right now, so I was hoping to ask you, little brother, if I could borrow some money to give to them so they can start new lives. I promise I'll pay you back double in the future." Asher nodded. "Your men are surely skilled and disciplined. I had $50,000 as seed money, but I hadn't decided what to do with it. Now, seeing you and your men, I have an idea. I want to start a secure transport company." "A transport company?" Cain was stunned, almost unable to believe it. But the more Asher thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. He had considered it before. In the capital, there were several major logistics and security firms that were extremely successful, with connections in both the corporate and criminal worlds. He had thought at the time that if the First Lady wanted to secretly develop her own network, a security and transport business was ideal. It combined profit-making with intelligence gathering, and allowed one to build relationships with everyone from corporate leaders and government officials to smugglers and mercenaries. It was a legitimate way to recruit armed men and secretly stockpile weapons. If they set up branches in different cities, it would create a natural intelligence network. It was the perfect front for a political power play. He knew how many revolutionaries in history had hidden in plain sight within such organizations. But starting such a business was difficult. He had only toyed with the idea. Now, it was as if fate had delivered Cain and his team of elite soldiers directly to him. Couldn't be more perfect. Modern security firms were mostly staffed by former soldiers and police officers. And his silent partner would be the heir to a political dynasty. The backing couldn't be stronger. He was using the First Lady's money, so he couldn't just take it and run. He had never thought he could truly escape her influence. As Cain said, a lone eunuch outside the walls of power had little chance of survival. It was better to play along, to follow her plan and build an enterprise for her, and in doing so, create his own path to freedom. A win-win was better than mutual destruction. From what Cain said, Julian had likely escaped safely. The First Lady would probably be displeased with his escape, but she was unlikely to go to the trouble of bringing him back. He needed to quickly build a successful business to present to her as an accomplishment, which would offset his failure to protect her son. So, Asher began to lay out his plan for Cain. He explained the advantages and disadvantages. They were wanted men, but they had not actually committed a major crime. Their worst offense was desertion, not treason. No government agency would keep an old case like that open forever. Once they were away from the capital in a place like Charleston, it would be impossible to track them. No one would ever suspect they would start a legitimate security company. The authorities would be looking for them among outlaw groups in the mountains. In time, the case would go cold, and no one would be looking for them anymore. A security business required travel through rural and remote areas, and it required skilled fighters. They could change their appearances, adopt new names. In their line of work, men like them were common. No one would look twice. Charleston was a major hub of commerce. If they could establish themselves there, it would provide a stable and respectable life for his men, a worthy reward for their loyalty. And, he added, with the First Lady and Julian as their silent partners, while they might not be able to clear their names overnight, getting a few desertion charges dropped would be easy. Cain hesitated, looking Asher up and down. After a long moment, he said, "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never believe such words could come from someone so young. I grew up with my father on the frontier. Few people in the capital know my face. So my plan was always to disappear, change my name, and live a quiet life. But listening to you, it all makes perfect sense. It seems you have some experience in this business, little brother." Since learning that Asher was a consecrated servant from the governor's household, he no longer underestimated him. Anyone from that world was a master of intrigue. What chance did a simple soldier like him have against such a mind? In the months since accepting the First Lady's assignment, Asher had used various means to investigate nearly every industry in the capital. He wouldn't say he was an expert, but he had a good grasp of the basics. Combined with his knowledge from his previous life, and with capital and talent now at his disposal, not to mention a potential connection in Charleston, he was confident of success. He smiled faintly. "If it doesn't work out, we can always just split the money and go our separate ways." Cain nodded. "I'll go talk to the men, but they've always followed my lead. I don't think they'll object. For now, you just focus on getting better. Once you're stronger, we'll head to Charleston." Asher felt a sense of relief and smiled at Cain. The smile seemed to catch Cain off guard. He stared for a moment, then blurted out, "When we start our new lives, you can be my real brother." Asher smiled back. "I'd be honored." Several years passed in a flash. It was summer again. In the trees, the cicadas shrieked relentlessly. The sun reflected off the water, a dazzling, shimmering light that hurt the eyes. In the lily ponds, huge lotus flowers crowded together, their beauty vibrant and overwhelming. Asher was lying on his side on a porch that was open on all four sides, propped up on one elbow, his eyes half closed. A loose silk robe barely covered him, and his long, dark hair spilled over his shoulder onto the bamboo pillow beside him. His feet were bare, and beneath his loose silk trousers, the lean lines of his calves were visible. Beside him, on a jade-green tray, sat a tea set, the tea in the cups clear and fragrant. There was also a dish of freshly peeled lotus seeds and water chestnuts floating in a crystal bowl with glistening ice cubes. But he didn't touch them, letting the ice slowly melt. The sound of water dripping from the eaves of the porch made the air feel even more languid and sleepy. Outside, the sun was scorching, but here on the porch, a clever system of water wheels lifted water to the roof, where it trickled down over the eaves, creating a cooling curtain of mist that carried away the sweltering heat. It was so pleasantly cool that it made one want to do nothing at all. Asher was marveling at the ingenuity of the design when he heard the clack-clack of wooden sandals on the porch. He sighed. His half-day of peace was over. "Brother, Brother Ash," a voice called out before its owner appeared. With a rapid clatter of sandals on the polished wooden floor, a teenage girl burst onto the porch. Her jade-like toes were bare in her sandals. She wore a simple, snow-white linen dress, and her hair was casually tied up, adorned with two delicate lotus flowers that accentuated her flawless skin and sparkling dark eyes. She saw Asher and pouted. "Ash, that's not fair. Cole got back from a job today and brought back several new men for the Charleston office, top-notch security specialists, and you're not even going out to meet them. You're getting lazier by the day, pushing all the accounting onto me. It's not fair." The girl was Mia, the young daughter Kane had rescued all those years ago. She had since changed her name and, in the intervening 3 years, had blossomed into a beautiful young woman. Asher slowly sat up. "You and Cole can handle it. You're getting better at this every day. Even if we opened 3 more branches, our Mia could manage them all." His movements were slow and languid. He reached for a jade pin by his pillow to tie up his long hair. The wide, thin sleeve of his robe slipped down, revealing a pale, slender wrist. There was an effortless, casual grace about him, a lazy charm that was somehow captivating. A blush rose on Mia's cheeks. She stomped her foot. "Brother Ash, you're always trying to get out of work. Come on, Cole said he brought you a lot of gifts." Urged on by Mia, Asher finally tied his hair into a loose knot, straightened his clothes, and let her pull him toward the main hall. In front of the hall was a large training yard. In the distance, Asher could see a group of security men sparring. In the heat, most of them had taken off their shirts, revealing toned chests and abdominal muscles, the lines of their bodies taut and powerful. Asher watched the honey-colored skin stretched over elastic muscle, the strong lines of their backs, and sighed internally. This was his weakness. Seeing these young men so freely display their masculine beauty was, frankly, a bit of a trial for someone who had to practice abstinence. Mia, who had grown up among these men, felt no shyness. She called out cheerfully, "Cole, Brother Ash is here." A tall man turned around. He had just taken off his shirt to spar with a new recruit. His muscular chest was slick with sweat, glistening in the sun. His body was powerful and explosive, without an ounce of fat, like a sleek black panther ready to strike at any moment. He saw Mia and his handsome brow furrowed. "You're not wearing shoes again," he muttered. He said a few words to the men, then threw a shirt over his shoulders and walked with Asher and Mia toward the main hall. From a distance, the men watched. A new recruit asked in surprise, "That's the boss's brother and sister? Why do they look nothing like him? So delicate." An older guard laughed. "You don't know the half of it. The real power in this company is that delicate-looking one, mister. Don't let his youthful looks fool you. His methods are sharp. Any business problem we have, if Mr. Ash gets involved, it gets solved. He just doesn't like to go out and socialize. He avoids people if he can. As for Miss Mia, she's a genius with numbers. They say she can do complex calculations in her head without an abacus. Half the wealthy merchants in Charleston are lining up with wedding gifts to marry her. With her skills at managing finances and a household, and with a brother-in-law like the boss, it's like marrying a gold mine." The new guard whistled. Did this family win the lottery or something? Every one of them is so talented. And good-looking, too. The boss is a legend, of course. This company, Aegis Transport, has only been around for 3 years, and we already have a branch in the capital. The capital? That's a whole different league. Before us, the big three security firms ran everything there. Any outside company that wanted to do business in D.C. had to pay them off. And all those firms have powerful backers. But Aegis, an outsider, managed to get a foothold and thrive. I always thought Aegis must have some incredibly powerful connection. I never would have guessed they started from nothing. The other guards chuckled. One of them said, "It wasn't all smooth sailing. Last year, when we opened the D.C. branch, things were tough. A lot of the original guys didn't want to expand to the capital. And sure enough, we ran into trouble. The head of our D.C. office got framed and thrown in jail. Then someone tried to seize our property, claiming they had been forced to sell it to us. It was a nightmare. Mr. Ash went to D.C. himself for 3 months. He met with everyone, greased so many palms. Money was flowing out like water. He sorted everything out. That's how we have the position we have today. Once we had the D.C. office, clients from Charleston, Savannah, Atlanta, they all wanted to hire us. The money started pouring in. That's why they say Mr. Ash has incredible vision. At the time, so many people thought Aegis was finished. Business was slow. Even here at headquarters, we missed payroll a few times. A lot of guys couldn't take it and left. Who would have thought we'd be where we are today? But when Mr. Ash came back from D.C., he was so thin he looked like a ghost. The boss stopped taking jobs for a while and stayed here in Charleston just to nurse him back to health. Another man added, "It's no surprise he's so thin. I heard Mr. Ash is a vegetarian." Someone else asked why, wondering if he was a man of faith. Another shook his head, saying it just seemed to be a personal preference. But he did love good wine. If you had a good bottle, he'd talk to you. Leaving the men to their amazed chatter, Kane, now going by Cole, was lecturing his sister. "Mia, you're almost of age. You can't just run around in a crowd of half-dressed men. At home, it's fine not to wear shoes, but you can't go out like that." Mia frowned. "Who wants to look at those smelly men? They're all muscle and brawn. I've been seeing them since I was a kid. Just because I'm turning 16, suddenly there are all these strange rules. It's so hot. The other day, Brother Ash and I went out for a drink, and we saw the women on the riverboats. None of them were wearing shoes. You're the only one who makes a fuss." Cole grunted and shot a glare at Asher. "You took her out for drinks again?" Asher rubbed his nose, a little embarrassed. "It was just some sweet plum wine. Not strong at all. It was so good, so thick it coated the glass. I've never had anything like it." Seeing Cole's glare intensify, he quickly changed the subject. "We were mainly there to see a play. A girl should have a few years of freedom. Why be so strict with her?" Cole replied, "It'll be hard to find her a good match. I know the world is more open now, but if we want to find her a good family, she needs to be modest and proper." As they spoke, they entered the main hall. A few chests were sitting on the floor. Cole opened one and took out several jewelry boxes. Mia's eyes lit up, and she reached for them, but Cole pulled them back and handed them to Asher. "Let your brother keep these for you. I bought you some fine jewelry on this trip. It'll be part of your dowry. You're so clumsy you'll break them. Let your brother keep them safe." He then turned to Asher. "You shouldn't spoil her so much. We need to start looking for a good husband for her. I'm on the road so much, I have to rely on you." Asher flinched. In his mind, Mia was just a 13-year-old girl, practically in middle school. How could she be getting married? In this era, marriage was no picnic for a woman. If you got up too early, you offended your husband. Too late, and you offended your mother-in-law. And childbirth at such a young age was a life-threatening ordeal. He felt awkward, and was about to speak when Mia, her face bright red, blurted out, "I don't want to marry anyone else. I'll marry Brother Ash. I don't want to leave Aegis." Asher and Cole both choked. Cole, extremely embarrassed, looked at Asher, then turned to Mia, his face stern. "Mia, don't talk nonsense. Asher is your brother." Mia stomped her foot. "He's not my real brother. You think because I was young, I don't remember? Why are you so eager to marry me off? What's wrong with me marrying Brother Ash? I can stay here at Aegis and he's good to me." Asher coughed lightly. "Mia's still young. She doesn't know what she's saying. Cole, you're worrying too much. Let's wait a few more years." Cole looked at Asher, mortified. "This child, she just babbles nonsense." Asher smiled. "How old is Mia? Since you care for her so much, let her stay at home for a few more years. Why are you in such a rush to marry her off?" Cole sighed. "You don't understand. My adoptive father, he took me in on the frontier, treated me like his own son. Now, Mia is his only blood relative left. I want to see her married and settled to continue his line. She's of age now. In this part of the country, girls marry young. They start looking for a match at 13, get engaged at 14, and after a year of preparing a dowry, they're married by 15 or 16. If you wait too long, she'll become an old maid. How could I face my father then? While she's young and has many options, we need to find her someone of good character and family. That's the only way I can repay my father's kindness." Asher sighed deeply. He knew this was the way of the world here. He was, after all, a stranger who had joined their family halfway through. He didn't have the same bond they shared since childhood. He couldn't just interfere. If Mia really did miss her chance at marriage because of him, it would be his fault. He had no choice but to nod. "I'll keep an eye out. I'll ask my contacts to look for suitable candidates." Cole nodded. Then he added, "On my way back from the capital, I heard the governor's son had a baby boy. The capital is celebrating." For the past 3 years, Asher had never spoken of his past. But Cole had slowly pieced things together. He knew that the man they had accidentally captured that day was the governor's son, Julian. And he knew that Asher had insisted on leaving the capital, yet had also insisted on opening a branch there. At the company's most difficult moment, he had personally gone to D.C. and, against all odds, carved out a place for them. In the 3 years since Aegis Transport had prospered. At first, he and his men had been worried about being recognized, but they soon found that after a change in the local administration, no one ever asked about that old incident. They were actually able to live and work in the open. Many of his men had married and were living normal, comfortable lives. It was all so smooth it felt as if they had a guardian angel. As the head of the company, Cole couldn't help but feel that their expansion was a bit too fast. Whenever they had a little extra profit, Asher would immediately start recruiting more men. Once they had enough qualified guards and managers, he would open another branch. Cole, with his military background, could see that the branches were all located in strategically important cities. They all had communication networks, carrier pigeons. The business was profitable, but Asher's style, expanding aggressively without keeping reserves, as if he had no fear of running out of capital, was not that of a typical cautious merchant. It made Cole uneasy at times. This was another reason he was so eager to see Mia married and settled. This little brother of his was either incredibly bold or had powerful backing he didn't know about. He trusted his character, and as for himself, he was a lone wolf. But Mia needed to be safe. Sure enough, at the mention of Julian, the smile on Asher's face faded. The 3 years of freedom had been good. Even when he had to work day and night to save the company, he had felt like a fish in water. Here, he was not an insignificant speck of dust, but a man in control of his own destiny. In 3 years, he had created a logistics network that spanned the country, connecting several major strategic cities. Each branch even had its own pigeon lofts. When he opened his first branch, the First Lady had quietly started sending him his first batch of personnel. They all looked like ordinary people with unremarkable backgrounds, but they were incredibly competent. He had reason to believe that the manager of every branch, every pigeon keeper, was one of her people. He knew this from the fact that she had sent him a message saying she had cleared Kane's and his men's records and provided them with new, clean identities. It was clear she was pleased with his work. And other than inserting her people, she had never interfered with the business operations or taken a single penny of the profits. In fact, she had quietly provided opportunities for the company in subtle ways. Outsiders thought Aegis was just lucky, but he knew there were invisible hands at work, a network of hidden threads waiting for the day of the storm. She was a woman of incredible foresight. Asher never underestimated her, and he never dared to make any moves of his own. He could only use the business to do some side trading in medicinal herbs and rare goods. In his previous life, due to his illness, he had few material desires. But he loved the feeling of creating something, the sense of accomplishment. He was enjoying this process. So he was doing well. But sometimes he would think of the life that now seemed so distant. His time as a servant in that gilded cage. Julian, Sterling, Leo. After the ambush, not long after, in the spring, Julian had married. His wife was the daughter of the commander of the National Guard, a man who held real military power. It was clearly a match handpicked by the First Lady. After the engagement was announced, the commander was given a title, and once Julian's wife became the First Lady herself, he was all but guaranteed a top position in the military command. This was likely why he had so readily allied himself with the First Lady. Sometimes, Asher would wonder what had happened to Sterling after he returned. Was he punished by the governor or the First Lady? How did he feel about Julian's marriage? But he only wondered. He never actively sought out news of these palace secrets. Cole knew he didn't like to talk about the past. But now, speaking of his sister, he felt awkward. After all, Asher could never have a wife and children. To talk of marriage in front of him always felt a bit clumsy. After a moment, he said hesitantly, "You'll have to help me with Mia. She only listens to you." Asher smiled. "She's still young. When she meets someone she likes, she'll be a different person. They say a daughter's loyalty is to her husband." Cole said seriously, "It's for her parents to decide with a matchmaker's help. We can't let her choose for herself." Asher saw him fully immersed in his role as a surrogate father and couldn't help but smile to himself. Cole then remembered something and brought out a bottle of wine. "This is something special. Wine from grapes, from the West. Someone was selling it in the capital. I brought it back for you to try." After leaving the governor's household, Asher had developed a taste for the fine wines of this era. The skill of the winemakers could turn simple fruit into a magical, fragrant liquid. Cole, probably feeling sorry for this adopted brother who had spent his childhood in such a restrictive environment, and seeing that it was Asher's one small indulgence, never discouraged him. Wherever he went on business, he would bring back the local specialty wine. Over time, everyone at Aegis knew that Mr. Ash enjoyed a good drink, but never to excess. Asher's eyes lit up as he took the wine. Seeing his expression instantly brighten, Cole was pleased. "I heard this kind is best served chilled. But you need to be careful with your health, don't drink it too cold." Asher nodded, holding the bottle. "Since you're being so good to me, brother, I suppose I can try to talk some sense into Mia. But you should stop talking about marriage all the time. Find a few good young men, create opportunities for them to meet. Things will happen naturally. Cole looked displeased. He had grown up in the military and was used to giving orders. But he trusted Asher, so he didn't say anything more. He discussed some business matters, then said, somewhat hesitantly, we have 12 branches now. That should be enough to meet the demand. Maybe we should slow down for a while, stabilize what we have. Asher smiled. You're right, brother. Seeing that he wasn't just being polite, Cole was relieved. He lowered his voice. You can't earn all the money in the world. You're still so young, you haven't had a chance to live a good life. You should enjoy yourself more. Some things, when you've done enough, you should stop. You need to think about yourself, live the life you want to live, not for someone else. No matter what, I'll always trust you. The thought of someone with Asher's talent and skill being trapped by fate, born into a life where he could never have a normal family, where he was bound to a secret mission, filled him with a pang of sympathy. He wanted to care for this younger brother, but Asher was always so distant and reserved, and he wasn't good at expressing his feelings. He always felt he owed him something. If only he weren't a eunuch, he would have married Mia to him in a heartbeat. The thought made him sad and bitter. Hearing his heartfelt words, Asher was taken aback. He looked at Cole and felt a warmth spread through his chest. In all his lives, he had never known such familial affection. Now he had a brother who genuinely cared for him. He felt a little guilty for using Cole to start the company, but for a fugitive like him, this was the best possible outcome. If you weren't useful to those in power, you weren't even considered worthy of existence. That was the lesson he had learned in the brutal world of politics. Now, this company, according to the First Lady's plan, was a fallback. If Julian's rise to power failed, it could serve as a means of retreat. So, the company would likely remain under the radar. And if Julian ultimately failed, he was confident he could protect Cole and Mia. Cole was still clumsily trying to comfort him. Even if you can't get married and have children, I'll find a way to adopt a child for you. Maybe Mia can have several children, and we can raise one as your own. It'll be the same, just like my adoptive father and me. Asher chuckled. In that case, you'd better get married soon, brother. Have lots of children so I can rely on my nephews in my old age. Then, he thought of a distant memory of Julian comforting Sterling, saying that even without a family, there were still many joys in life. He wondered how they were doing now. He was lost in thought when Cole clapped him on the shoulder with a hearty laugh and went outside. Over this business of marriage, Mia was genuinely angry with Cole this time. She sulked for days, refusing to even eat with him. Cole was helpless. He wanted to smooth things over but didn't know how. Although he had been adopted by her father, he had been raised on the frontier and barely knew this sister who had grown up in the capital. After rescuing her, he had been consumed with starting the company, always on the road, while Asher had been the one to raise her. Asher had never raised a child before, and his modern sensibilities were at odds with the customs of this era. Other than providing for her material needs, he had personally taught her to read, write, do arithmetic, and conduct business. He had never taught her the traditional feminine virtues. He spoke of world events, foreign lands, the vastness of the world beyond the home. He taught her self-reliance, the importance of a skill, the art of reading people. After 3 years of this unconventional education, Mia had been thoroughly molded by Asher. She could never be bent back into the shape of a gentle, virtuous, submissive lady of a grand household. Thinking about it, Asher felt a little guilty. This was a man-eating world. Had he done her a disservice by raising her to be so independent? Would it really affect her chances of marriage? He had always thought of Mia as a 13-year-old girl, far from marriageable age, but he had forgotten that arranging a marriage took time. So he had to mediate. As it happened, there was a business deal to be negotiated at the Savannah branch. He decided to take Mia with him, to give her a change of scenery and a chance to cool off, and to offer some psychological comfort. As for Mia's talk of marrying him, he didn't take it seriously. A child's mind changed 18 times a day. She was probably just afraid of being married off to a stranger. On the boat, Mia was sullenly peeling water chestnuts. He won't even get married himself, so what right does he have to keep trying to marry me off? What's wrong with me marrying you, huh, Brother Ash? Tell me, you don't like me? Why can't you marry me? Asher smiled. Your brother is completely devoted to the business. He says it's a dangerous life, and he doesn't want a wife at home worrying about him all the time. And with what happened in the past, he feels it would be dishonest to marry someone. He's genuinely thinking of your best interests. You should try to understand him. You've been angry with him for days, and he's been miserable. Mia was not heartless. Hearing Asher speak of her brother's care for her, she felt a little guilty, but she said stubbornly, "It all happened so long ago. Half the matchmakers in Charleston are knocking on our door for him." She then thought of the even greater number of matchmakers who came for Asher and felt another pang of discontent. Never mind him. What about you? Why won't you marry me? What's wrong with me? Asher was getting a headache. But he had never been one to lie to Mia. But she was only 13. To talk to her about his situation would shatter her world. So he said, "The world is a big place. I don't want to be tied down to one place. And you're not the type of person I like." Rejected so bluntly, Mia lost face. She mumbled for a bit, then started pestering him about what type of person he did like. Asher thought for a long time at a loss for words. He had grown up an orphan in both lives. He yearned to be loved, but how much love would be enough? After a long pause, he said, with a touch of melancholy, "Probably someone who could love me with everything they have." But, he thought, such a person couldn't possibly exist in this world. Because he himself was incapable of loving anyone. How could he expect someone to love him like that? So, it was better to be alone. Savannah was even more prosperous than Charleston. Asher took Mia to the branch office, dealt with business, and checked the accounts. It was the third day before they had any free time to go out. The city was safe, and Asher and Mia, used to being independent, didn't bring any attendance. The two of them wandered through the streets, eating and shopping as they pleased. In the morning, Mia was clamoring to see the city's famous riverfront. Asher smiled to himself. The pleasure boats only came out at night. But he indulged her, and they strolled along the river. The willows swayed in the breeze, and the river was crowded with boats. The faint sounds of music and singing drifted over the water. It was indeed a captivating place. Asher was wondering if he should rent a boat and take Mia out for lunch on the water, when suddenly his wrist was seized in a grip as strong as iron. He looked up, startled, and saw a face he hadn't seen in years. Julian was gritting his teeth, his face pale with fury. "Asher," he snarled. The name spat out from between clenched teeth. He was dressed in plain clothes, but he still radiated an aura of power. People on the street were starting to stare, but the guards behind Julian glared at them until they looked away. Asher struggled but couldn't break free. He didn't dare meet the rage in Julian's eyes and lowered his gaze. Mia was already shouting, "Who are you? Let go of him." Asher sighed. "Mia, go back. I've run into my master. I have to go with him. Tell Cole I won't be coming back." He gave her a look, trying to signal her not to argue. Julian's face was like a thundercloud, and he was surrounded by several attendants. Mia could see that these men were not to be trifled with. The protest on her lips died. She was the daughter of a disgraced general, after all. Though she had been rescued by Cole at the age of 10, she knew her official status was that of a criminal. Seeing these men who looked like federal agents, she felt a surge of fear and didn't dare argue further. Her face pale, she watched as Julian shoved Asher toward his guards. "Take him back," he said coldly. 2 guards stepped forward. One twisted Asher's arms behind his back, while the other took out a rope to tie him. Julian saw Asher's head forced down. His brow furrowed as if his arms were being hurt. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. He glared at the guards. No need to tie him. The 2 guards looked at each other, confused, then released Asher. They flanked him, watching him closely as he followed Julian back to his accommodations, a large yacht moored at the docks. Julian must have traveled by water. Once on board, Asher didn't need to be told. He walked into the main cabin and silently knelt on the plush red carpet. Julian paced back and forth, a storm brewing in his eyes. "I thought you were dead," he said, his voice dangerously low. "I had every local authority in the region searching for you. There was no word. I thought you were gone forever. I even sent a pension to your family. And here you are, strolling along the street with a woman, enjoying yourself." The last few words were squeezed out through his teeth. For 3 years, whenever he thought of the missing Asher, he had felt a pang of guilt, remembering how he had sacrificed himself to lead the bandits away. He had felt remorse for his past harshness. But now, he saw that the man was a master of deception, that he had long since escaped and was living a life of leisure. He took a deep breath. "Tell me, why didn't you come back? Why didn't you send word that you were safe? Do you have any idea how?" He cut himself off, looking angrily at the silent, kneeling figure on the floor. "Do you know that if you are discovered outside the household without authorization, any local authority can execute you on the spot without trial? Do you know what happens to runaway servants when they are recaptured?" Asher kept his eyes on the floor, saying nothing. The life outside had been too free, too comfortable. He had no desire to return to that suffocating cage. But now, his only option was to go back and ask the First Lady to find a way to arrange for his official release. Julian asked a few more questions about his escape. Asher only said he had been taken by the bandits and later abandoned on the side of the road, where he was rescued by a farmer. When pressed for details, for why he didn't return, he fell silent. Seeing his stubborn, uncooperative attitude, so different from the lively, animated young man he had seen by the river, Julian felt a surge of frustration. He had been strolling with his guards when he saw a handsome young couple by the water, laughing and talking. On closer inspection, he realized it was Asher. He was dressed in a simple, elegant blue shirt, the breeze ruffling his clothes. His smile was faint, but it was a genuine, happy smile that Julian had never seen before. He looked healthier, his face fuller and with more color. It was obvious he was doing well. At that moment, after the initial shock, Julian had felt not joy, but a wave of anger. He had been planning to reward him handsomely when he found him. But it turned out the man didn't want his reward. He was perfectly happy on his own. He didn't want to serve him. He didn't want anything from him. The first chance he got, he had run away. Julian clenched his fists, feeling a familiar, suffocating frustration. In the end, he couldn't think of a way to punish Asher. Flogging was out of the question. On the road, without proper medical care, a minor injury could turn into a serious illness. And a minor punishment would be pointless. He couldn't just exile him to a labor camp. After making him kneel in the cabin for an hour, he had Leo take him away, change his clothes, and see to his needs. Leo, while giving Asher a set of his own clothes, chattered on. You have no idea how many people the young master had looking for you. He was constantly sending people to the local authorities to ask for news. A few of the bandits were caught and executed in the most gruesome way, but the rest were never found. 4 days, he went to the state police headquarters himself to oversee the case, just to find you. It was only when his wedding was approaching that the First Lady reprimanded him and he stopped going. But even so, he would still send people to ask about the progress of the investigation every few days. Now, there isn't a single bandit, not even a thief, in the entire region. He suddenly exclaimed, "Your wrist, it's bruised. Let me find some ointment." Asher knew that the unlucky few who were caught must have been Wade and his crew. Julian would have made sure they suffered. But he didn't ask. He only asked what business had brought Julian here. Leo explained that he was on a mission from the governor to inspect the river works. They had finished their inspection and were scheduled to head back to the capital the next day. Today, they had been on a walk to observe the local conditions, and by sheer coincidence, they had run into him. Asher could only curse his luck. He thought about the river works, which were notoriously corrupt. Julian, with his uncompromising nature, and with the dark mood he was in today, must have encountered a lot of resistance on his trip. But the corruption in the river works was tied to a web of connections in the capital. At his current level, Julian couldn't touch it. What was the point of the governor sending him on this inspection? Asher then asked, "I heard His Highness has a son now." Leo smiled. "Yes." The governor is overjoyed. For a while, he had been a bit cold toward His Highness. After the baby was born, their relationship improved, and he was given this assignment. Asher was silent, pondering the implications. He then asked how Sterling was doing. Leo hesitated for a moment. "It's a long story. After you disappeared, His Highness came down with a fever. But he's always been strong, and he recovered after a few days of rest. But Sterling was also sick. The First Lady wanted to punish him, but His Highness spoke up for him, saying Sterling had been whipped while protecting him. The First Lady was still furious and stripped Sterling of his rank. He's still serving in the household, but he's not allowed to be near His Highness. His Highness didn't dare defy his mother. If the governor had gotten involved, Sterling would have been executed on the spot. Though he lost his rank, his duties are light, and His Highness told me to look after him, so he hasn't had a hard time. But after that incident, he just lost his spark. He's always dazed and withdrawn. Sometimes His Highness gets worried and wants to see him, but he refuses to see him, just avoids him. We don't know what's wrong. Then His Highness was busy with the wedding, so he didn't have much time for him. He just told us to take good care of him and make sure he wasn't bullied." Asher sighed. He then asked if Julian's wife was easy to serve. Leo replied, "She was chosen by the governor and the First Lady themselves. Of course she's gentle, dignified, well-read, a true lady. She and His Highness get along well, and she's very kind to us, his personal staff. There's just one thing. She's too proper. Sometimes it's too much." Asher was curious. "What do you mean?" Leo looked around to make sure no one was listening, then lowered his voice. "This is something only we who serve him closely know. I'm telling you so you're aware, but don't spread it around. The First Lady has forbidden anyone to speak of it. One of the princess's maids was even put to death over it." Asher's expression changed slightly. Leo continued in a whisper, "His Highness has always respected his wife. After the wedding, the 2 companions the First Lady had assigned were given titles, but His Highness never once visited them. Other than his own study, he only ever spent the night in his wife's chambers. Soon enough, she was pregnant. Everyone in the household was ecstatic. During her pregnancy, she couldn't serve him, so it was expected that he would turn to his concubines. The two companions, who had never actually served him because he had been sick when they first arrived, thought their chance had finally come. They were constantly trying to bribe us. We didn't dare accept, of course. The First Lady and the Princess were in charge. And besides, His Highness was completely focused on matters of state. But then, the princess, I don't know what rumors she heard, but she secretly had someone bring Sterling to the master bedroom. She had him taught the proper etiquette and told him to wait to serve His Highness that night. Asher was stunned. How could she be so foolish? Leo nodded. It was my turn on duty that night. His Highness pulled back the bed curtains and saw Sterling, naked, waiting in his bed. His face went pale. He threw the curtains shut and stormed back to his study. He smashed everything in sight. Then he went to his wife's chambers to confront her. I've served him since he was a child. You know how he is, always so dignified and composed. I've never seen him so angry. I don't know what he said to her, but that night, she went into premature labor. The doctors were called. The First Lady was summoned. She gave His Highness a long lecture, and in the end, he had to apologize to his wife. But the First Lady must have said something to her, because one of her maids was beaten to death. They said she was the one who gave the princess the idea. The First Lady said the princess was young and didn't know any better. But we all felt so bad for His Highness. He is the most honorable, upright man. He's not the type to dally with young boys. He was fond of Sterling because of their childhood friendship, and he looked out for him, but it was always proper, just like with the rest of us. There was never anything sordid. Sterling, who has always been so proud, was forced to endure that humiliation. He fell ill immediately after. A few days later, he started coughing up blood. The doctors came and said he had consumption. You know the rules of the household. A contagious disease like that, he couldn't stay. The First Lady ordered him to be moved out to recover. But His Highness, out of loyalty to their old friendship, didn't send him to the infirmary. He had his cousin find a private house for him outside the city, with servants to look after him. But after all this time, he's not getting any better. Before His Highness left for this trip, he sent me to see him. His face was so sallow he barely looked human. Such a mess. The four of us used to serve His Highness so well. You disappeared, Sterling was moved out. Now it's just me and the other one left. The First Lady wanted to replace you, but His Highness refused. He's kept your positions open. He's a very loyal man. And you? If you were safe all this time, why didn't you come back? Were you afraid of being punished? Asher listened to Leo's rambling, a strange ache in his chest. He didn't know why. Thinking about it, Sterling and he were alike. They both loved men. But Sterling had fallen in love with someone who could never return his feelings. When he had been brought to Julian's bed, he must have held onto a sliver of hope that it was Julian's wish. And when Julian had stormed out in a rage, that last sliver of hope must have been completely extinguished. Julian's yacht was moored on the canal. That evening, the local officials were hosting a banquet for him, and he would be staying there for the night, returning to the boat the next day. Julian had planned to take Leo with him, but as he was about to leave, he saw Asher, now dressed in an attendant's uniform, standing silently by the door. He paused. He hadn't brought many guards with him. Though the local authorities had provided security, he knew that as soon as he left, the security would relax. This man didn't want to come back. If he tried to escape while he was gone. But he couldn't just have him locked up like a prisoner. After a moment's thought, he said, "You come too." Asher didn't dare refuse. He agreed, silently thankful that he rarely came to the city and had no connections with the local officials. so there was no risk of his identity as a business owner being exposed in front of Julian. Besides, for the sake of Cole and Mia, he couldn't risk trying to escape here. He had to go back to the capital and see the First Lady first. They were taken by carriage to a magnificent estate, which they were told belonged to a local salt merchant and had been borrowed by the mayor for the banquet. The banquet was the usual affair. Asher had served at many of them before, and though it had been 3 years, he hadn't forgotten his duties. He served Julian through the meal. That night, they stayed at the estate. Julian had had some wine and, back in his room, he unbuttoned his jacket and called for a bath. Leo was busy preparing the bedroom, so Asher took over, helping Julian to the bath. Savannah was a city of immense wealth, and the merchant, eager to impress the governor's son, had spared no expense. The bathroom was actually a hot spring-fed pool, the water strewn with flower petals, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. As soon as they entered, 2 beautiful, elegantly dressed maids stepped forward and curtsied, their soft voices announcing that they were there to serve His Highness in his bath. They had clearly been provided by the mayor. Julian, accustomed to being served, thought nothing of it. He walked to the edge of the pool and held out his arms for them to help him undress. The 2 maids stepped forward to untie his sash. Julian waved them away, then looked over at Asher in surprise. Asher was staring blankly at the flowers floating in the water. Julian was both annoyed and amused. "Come here and help me," he urged. Asher, startled, was slow to react. He had seen the maid step forward and had instinctively stood aside. Julian chided him lightly. "Have a few years on your own made you forget all your manners?" Asher felt a flush of embarrassment. He remembered that Julian had always preferred his personal male attendants for intimate tasks like bathing and dressing. He had never liked having maids do it. He hadn't realized that even now, after his marriage, he was still the same. He hurried forward and helped Julian undress. In the years he had been gone, Julian had grown into a young man, with broad shoulders and long legs. His muscles were toned and well-defined, a testament to his continued physical training. After he undressed, the 2 maids led him down the stone steps into the pool. The water was steaming. In the shallow end, there was a marble bench for bathers to sit on. Julian had just sat down when he frowned. The 2 maids, wearing colorful silk robes, had followed him into the water. The wet silk clung to their skin, revealing every curve of their bodies. One of them began to pour water over his shoulders with a jade ladle, while the other lathered a washcloth with scented soap. The 2 girls, clearly nervous, their faces flushed, their touch as light as a feather, began to wash him. Julian frowned again. "All of you get out," he said suddenly. "I don't need you to serve me." The 2 girls looked at each other, confused. Julian, growing impatient, snapped, "Get out." Then he looked at Asher, who was on the bank folding towels. "You come down here and serve me." Asher glanced at the 2 girls, who were now climbing awkwardly out of the pool, their wet clothes clinging to them, looking pitiful. But Julian didn't seem to notice. He was still staring at him. Asher didn't dare speak. He went forward, took the ladle and washcloth, and waded into the pool, feeling his own robes getting soaked. They were borrowed from Leo. He didn't know if he had a change of clothes. Julian saw the reluctant look on his face and almost laughed. "Am I gonna run out of robes for you to wear? Wash my back." It was true. In the past, he had always been so meticulous, so careful. But now, given the chance, he had shown his true colors. Bold and reckless, running away at the first opportunity. And he had been on his own for 3 years. His rebellious nature was now on full display. His past subservience had all been an act. Asher didn't dare say a word. He took the washcloth and began to wash Julian's back. Julian turned and rested his arms on the sloping side of the pool, feeling the strong, steady pressure of Asher's hands kneading the knots in his shoulders. Felt wonderful. He relaxed and let him work for a while. Feeling the tension ease, he turned around and had him wash his front. Asher lathered the washcloth and began to wash him from top to bottom. When he got to his lower body, he saw that Julian was erect, pointing directly at him. He had served Julian for years and was no stranger to his anatomy. But after 3 years, the boy had become a man. What was once a small, harmless thing was now a formidable presence. Seeing it so suddenly, Asher found he couldn't bring himself to wash it with the same detached indifference as before. A wave of frustration washed over him, and he was tempted to throw the washcloth down and walk away. Julian, noticing his hesitation, opened his eyes and saw his young attendant. His face flushed crimson, staring at his erection. Since his wife's pregnancy and the subsequent drama, he hadn't paid any mind to his own needs. This past year had been busy, and the inspection of the river works had been stressful. He hadn't had any release in a long time. The hot water and Asher's gentle washing, combined with the presence of the 2 young women earlier, had aroused him. He had no idea of the turmoil in Asher's mind. He just thought he was being shy. He couldn't help but smile. "All right, that's enough. Go change your wet clothes. I'm gonna soak for a little longer." Asher, relieved, dropped the washcloth and climbed out of the pool. Julian watched as his wet robe clung to his body, revealing a slender waist, still the body of a boy. He thought about how Asher had been consecrated since childhood. In his 3 years on his own, he must have realized that he could never live a normal life. He would have to constantly hide his secret. And after he was injured and taken by the bandits, his life on his own must not have been easy. What had he been through all these years? Why had he stayed away after he escaped? In the household, with him, he would have been well taken care of. Why did he choose a life of hardship outside? And the pretty young girl he was with today, who was she to him? A wave of irritation washed over him, but he knew that in his current mood, Asher would not tell him anything. He didn't want to force him. After all, he had saved his life and Sterling's. And Sterling, who had been so depressed and guilty over his disappearance, would surely feel better knowing he had brought him back. Thinking of Sterling's current condition, his mood soured even more. He rinsed himself off and got out of the water. He watched Asher help him dry off and dress. His movements were clumsy and out of practice. He saw that Asher looked well, had even put on some weight. He must have been living well. Was he resentful about being captured and brought back? Should he just let him go? The thought flashed through his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. A talent like this wasted on the outside? And as a eunuch, what could he do out there? With him, he would have a good future. He thought, with self-satisfaction, that he was doing the right thing. He dried himself off haphazardly, then remembered something. He looked up and saw Asher by the side of the pool, wringing out his wet clothes. "Take off your clothes." "Let me see," he said. Asher looked up, stunned. Julian saw the look of pure shock on his face, saw him staring at him, having forgotten the rule about not looking directly at his master. He laughed. "Have a few years out of the household made you forget all the rules? I want to see if you have any scars. You were beaten badly that day. I want to see what happened." Sterling had a scar from just one lash. "You must have fared much worse. When we get back, I'll have the royal physician look at you. They're good at removing scars." As he spoke, he strode toward him. Dressed in fine clothes and well-fed, he was a tall, imposing figure. Asher felt a sense of pressure and lowered his eyes, embarrassed. "It's nothing, Your Highness. The wounds have healed." Julian reached for his robe. "I just want to see." Asher quickly grabbed his belt. "My humble body is not fit for Your Highness's eyes," he said, backing away toward the door. Julian was quick. He grabbed his wrist. "Don't be afraid," he said gently. "I just want to see your back." He looked at his wrist and saw a faint, shallow scar, not very noticeable. Then he pulled open Asher's wet robe and looked at his shoulders and back. He was surprised. "There are no scars. You've healed well. It seems you didn't suffer too much these past few years." This was thanks to Cole. When they arrived in Charleston, though times were hard at first, he had spared no expense, buying expensive pearl powder, honey, and other scar-removing remedies to treat him. And with his young, healthy body, the wounds had healed without leaving much of a trace. Asher quickly pulled his robe closed. "I have thick skin, Your Highness." Julian frowned. "Don't talk like that. I know you're bold and reckless at heart, but you're so good at hiding it with your words." He couldn't be bothered to have him serve him anymore. He dressed himself, then said in a more serious tone, "I know you're not happy about being brought back. But as a eunuch, you have no roots out there. It might seem fine now, but it's not a long-term solution. If anyone discovers your secret, you won't be able to stay anywhere. It's better to be with me. I can give you a future. You've done me a great service. I won't mistreat you. Just come back with me." Asher kept his head down and murmured his assent. But he had been away from the palace stage for too long. He couldn't quite get his mask back on. Julian could see the insincerity on his expressionless face. He sighed and tried again. "You will be rewarded for your service. When we get back, I will speak to my mother and have you promoted to the same rank as Leo. Is there anything else you want? You can ask for it now. Or is there anything here you can't bear to leave behind? We're leaving tomorrow, but I can have my guards escort you to get it tonight." Asher quickly shook his head. He couldn't let Julian discover his base of operations. He had to readjust his mindset to try to make his face look sincere. "Your Highness, I have nothing of value out here. I can leave with you tomorrow." Julian knew from his expression that he was lying. He felt another surge of annoyance, but he couldn't argue with him. "You may go," he said, frustrated. Asher left the room and saw Leo leading a beautifully dressed young woman with an elaborate hairstyle toward the door. Leo just nodded at him and went inside. A moment later, he came back out. As he walked away, he was saying to the woman, "I told you, His Highness is here on business. He won't be receiving any companions. Go back and tell the mayor that His Highness appreciates the thought." The woman, her head lowered, was led away by other maids. Leo then said to Asher, "His Highness has refused all offers of companions on this trip. But these local officials are persistent. I refused all the others, but I thought, since the work is done and we're leaving tomorrow, maybe His Highness would be interested. So I brought her in for him to see. But he still refused." Asher thought of what he had seen in the bath. Julian clearly had needs. He didn't understand, but he was not yet back in the mindset of a servant. He didn't think too much about it and went to his own room for the night. After leaving Savannah, they traveled back to the capital by boat. The days on the boat were tedious for Asher. Julian kept him by his side most of the time, though he didn't give him any heavy work, just tasks like grinding ink and reading aloud. But Asher, used to his freedom, found it suffocating. He had also developed the habit of taking a short nap in the afternoon. One day, Julian was inspired to paint the scenery outside his window. He painted for an hour. Asher, who was supposed to be kneeling by his side holding the inkstone, couldn't stay awake. He dozed off, leaning against the table. When he woke up, the finished painting was laid out to dry, but Julian was gone. He panicked and went outside. He found Julian leaning against the railing of the boat, looking out at the water. He acted as if nothing had happened and told him to have dinner served. Asher thought he might have gotten away with it, but that was impossible. For the next few days, Julian never had him serve him in the afternoon. He found excuses to send him away. Though he couldn't openly take a nap, at least he could relax a little when he wasn't in Julian's presence. It seemed that Julian's tolerance had increased. He made a few other small mistakes, but Julian didn't reprimand him. Asher finally concluded that either Julian's temper had improved over the past 3 years, or he had been so perfect before that he had never noticed how lenient Julian actually was. No matter how much Asher dreaded returning to the palace, they soon arrived in the capital. Julian returned to his wing, quickly washed and changed, and then went to see the governor. Leo and Asher had a brief reunion, but before they could catch up, Leo was called to serve Julian on his way to the governor's office. Leo took Asher to his quarters. He told him that the main courtyard was now the princess's residence, and that he should be careful not to go there without permission. If he needed anything, he should speak to the guards at the inner gate and have them pass on a message. The side courtyard was where the 2 companions lived, and he should be careful not to disturb them. He would be staying in his old room. Julian had ordered that his things not be moved. For the past 3 years, he had had someone clean it occasionally. He also said that Julian had mentioned that when he returned, he would be promoted to the 5th rank. And then he would have his own junior attendants to command, so he wouldn't have to do menial tasks anymore. Asher just listened. Suddenly, he heard a young voice call out, "Brother Leo, are you back?" Leo stopped and smiled. "Miss Buttons, did the princess send you?" Asher looked and saw a young maid with a round face, single eyelids, and a few freckles on her pale skin. She had a cheerful smile. "Brother Leo, you must be tired from your trip. You should be resting. But our mistress would like to speak to you, to ask about His Highness's trip." Leo smiled. "It's no hardship to serve our master. Thank you for coming all this way to deliver the message. I have a few errands to run for His Highness, but I'll come over as soon as I'm done. Please ask her to wait." Buttons smiled. "Brother Leo, you're always so dependable." She then looked at Asher. "This young man is new. I don't remember hearing about any new arrivals." Leo said, "This is Asher. He also serves His Highness. The older staff members will remember him." He didn't elaborate. When Buttons heard the name, she realized it was a name given by Julian just like Leo's. She smiled. "My apologies, Brother Asher. I didn't realize." Asher smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. Leo then took him to his room, quickly gave him some instructions, and said, "I have to go to the main courtyard to report to the princess. I'll probably be a while. You should have some food brought in. While His Highness is not here, you should eat." He then hurried off. Asher didn't think much of it. This princess seemed a bit impatient. But then again, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Julian had been gone for what must have been over a month. He went to the kitchen and had a meal brought to his room. In the palace, you couldn't expect regular meals. You had to take care of yourself when your master wasn't around. He hadn't had palace food in a long time. The vegetables were overcooked, the oil had a strange, earthy taste, and the rice was hard. He had grown soft on the outside. He forced himself to eat, then put down his chopsticks, wondering when he would see the First Lady. She would soon hear of his return. The news from his company would probably reach her before he did. After a while, Leo finally returned. He was stuffing pastries into his mouth in the servants' quarters, looking at the water clock. His Highness will probably go to the First Lady's chambers to pay his respects after he sees the governor. He should be back around this time. You should be ready. Asher smiled. Take your time. His Highness has to eat too. I can cover for you. Leo shook his head. No, the princess just questioned me in great detail about the trip. Then she told me about the baby. I think she's hoping His Highness will spend the night with her. Even if it's just for the sake of the baby, he'll definitely go to her courtyard tonight. So he probably won't be eating here. If he eats here, we can relax. But if he goes to her courtyard, we have to serve them. He quickly washed down a few pastries with some tea. Sure enough, they heard a commotion from the main hall. Julian was back. Leo and Asher exchanged a look. As his personal attendants, they had to go greet him. They saw Julian striding into the room, unbuttoning his collar as he walked. Leo followed behind him, carrying his formal coat. He had been to see the governor, so he was wearing the formal, multi-layered yellow tunic of his rank. Leo, seeing his haste, asked, "Your Highness, are you coming from the First Lady's chambers?" Julian glanced at him. Sterling's condition has worsened. I have to leave the palace immediately. If I wait any longer, the gates will be locked. He called for a horse to be readied. He had already stripped down to his undershirt. Leo, with practiced efficiency, had a set of street clothes ready for him. Leo, seeing the situation, asked tentatively, "In the main courtyard, the princess has already prepared dinner. And she said the baby has grown." Julian cut him off. "Send someone to tell her not to wait for me." He then saw Asher and pointed. "You come with me. Get changed now." Asher was taken aback. He saw the grim look on Julian's face and didn't speak. He went and changed his clothes as quickly as he could. When he came out, Julian was already in a sedan chair. Seeing him, he called out, "Hurry up!" The chair was lifted and carried at a run toward the palace gates. A carriage was waiting. They raced through the streets to the Long Island estate. A guard had already been sent ahead to announce their arrival. Marcus came out to greet them. Julian stopped him before he could bow. "How is Sterling?" Marcus saw Asher and was stunned for a moment. He quickly led Julian inside. "He's been unwell for a few days, coughing up blood. The royal physician came and said he would be fine by spring. He prescribed some medicine, but he can't keep it down. The First Lady heard about it and sent some ginseng, but it hasn't helped. For the past few days, he's barely eaten. The physician just says he's fading, that it doesn't look good." As they spoke, they reached a secluded courtyard. Julian, clearly familiar with the place, went straight in and lifted the curtain. It was a hot summer evening, and the room was stuffy and filled with the overwhelming smell of medicine, even with the windows open. But Julian didn't seem to notice. He went straight to the bed. "Sterling, how are you?" On the bed, under the covers, lay a figure with sallow skin and closed eyes, looking gaunt and frail. Asher walked over and barely recognized the beautiful, ethereal boy he once knew. He was shocked. Julian called Sterling's name a few times. Sterling slowly opened his eyes. Seeing Julian, he tried to move. "Your Highness," he whispered, "why did you come to this filthy place? You'll get sick." Julian lowered his head and forced a smile. "I just got back from a trip. I brought you some local specialties. I'll have someone bring them to you later. How are you feeling?" He suddenly remembered something and turned to see Asher. "Look who's back."